At this point, we're going to rush off in pursuit of further ideas and inspiration. We have some rapid-fire presentations coming up now, and we want you to learn as much about the coalition and about the members of the coalition and about the work they're doing, but we only have so much time in the day and a half that we're together. So we've created a session or series of sessions entitled Ignite Talks. And I've seen these in different contexts. Some people call them lightning talks or flash talks. But the idea is to give people 5 minutes of time to come up, talk about their program, and inspire you to come back and talk to them. Again, at the poster session, all the people who are doing Ignite Talks will have posters. You'll have a chance to talk to them, and in some cases, students who are part of that program, which I think is a very authentic way to learn about the impact of things. So we will kick that off. And the first one is by Marianne Cowan from Bates, the Associate Director of Program Design at Bates College for their Purposeful Work program. She's also a 92 graduate of Bates. And I have to say that Bates has really been an inspiration for us. Now, we talk a lot in the coalition, as Angela was mentioning, about the Gallup survey, which really provided us with inspiration from the beginning. And the Gallup survey is about student well-being, but it's also about students finding identity, agency, and purpose. And Bates, through the leadership of President Spencer and all the faculty and others who have worked at Bates, have really embodied that idea of finding purpose, finding purposeful work in what they do with their students. So we're very excited to have Marianne come up to the stage and present. And these are 5-minute talks. So we have a system where Dana will hold up a yellow card when people get to 4 minutes and a red card at 5 minutes. So just to let people know that their time is very much running out. So, Marianne, thank you so much for being here.
So good morning. I'm Marianne Cowan from, again, the Center for Purposeful Work at Bates College. The city of Lewiston, Maine, which Bates calls home, is a former mill town on the Androscoggin River. The river name Androscoggin is an English variation on the Wabanaki place name, roughly translated as place to smoke fish at the falls. And those falls are important. Much of Lewiston's 19th century economic development came from textile mills powered by those great falls of the Androscoggin, spinning weaving looms like I assume you see the one pictured here. So I've decided to use the messy, multi-directional framework of weaving, as Angela did, to share our approach to purposeful work at Bates. I think the key takeaways, your learning goals for this poster session later this afternoon are, one, that the purposeful work philosophy or process is grounded in the priority of well-being, which we have defined with a developmental psychology lens at Bates, and two, that it is very intentionally woven into every aspect of the student experience so that it becomes a way of life and a mindset for the students. Some of our programs would be easily planted and scaled in another institution. Bates is an undergraduate institution of 2,000 students, so scale is an important thing for us to talk about here at this conference. And some are probably more challenging, but I do look forward to talking about those possibilities with folks later today. We knew, even in 2014, that the word purpose or purposeful would be loaded and very subjective. So we have laid out and stayed faithful to these definitions and premises. We emphasize to students that work is happening in every aspect and role of their life, now as students and in their future. It was very important from our earliest conversations that purposefulness and purposeful work had to have positive impact on the world outside of the individual. We teach students about being attuned to what the world needs. We talk also a great deal about alignment and therefore discovery of one's values, interests, and strengths as they explore work. So there is an equation we teach about exploration of self in relation to others, leading to purpose in work and overall well-being. I'm not getting a advance. There we go. So these are the processes or mindsets that we hope students will gain in competency, recognition, and confidence in building habits of mind as they repeat them over and over in every aspect of their Bates experience over their 4-year arc with us. They start with exploration, they test out experiences, they reflect on their learning, they cycle back to more exploration, testing, achieving alignment, and importantly, the ability to continue to reflect upon and articulate what they are gaining and bringing to the table or to the world. We are very intentional in how we lead students through those practices, weaving those habits of mind through each of our programs. These are our programs, or this is our suite of programs. In new student orientation, in collaboration with the Dean of Students, we encourage exploration and reflection of values and interests. The Job Shadow program incorporates testing and reflection. The first-year seminar on the purpose of college and their purpose as a college student weaves in daily reflective writing and articulation skills at various levels of work and career exploration. The Purposeful Work internship program has a highly structured reflection and feedback cohort model accompanying its summer of career-related experience. The Purposeful Work infusion courses ask students to reflect in infinitely unique ways about the connection between their course material in cellular biology or the Hebrew Bible and the concepts of work and purpose. So on my poster later this afternoon, I've detailed a few examples visually, and I'd love to talk with folks about any of those programs across the full student experience, curricular, co-curricular, and career and job related. It is our aim through this very intentional weaving that we prepare students with the tools they need to create lives of purpose and meaning. We think of this as our core mission, or as core to our mission as a liberal arts college. We reach them where they are and hopefully everywhere that they are. One important way we think about our outcomes in the Center for Purposeful Work is in terms of our remarkable reach and student participation. So I'll leave you with some of those data here. And I can't see the colors of the cards. But that's our reach, and I'd love to talk with you more about scaling from a 2,000 student institution to yours.
Thank you very much, Marianne. So we have our next Ignite talk, there we go, from Brandy Papadon-Smith, who's the director of Work Plus Learn at Arizona State University. And there's some purpose in the juxtaposition of these two talks because in some ways they're related. And it actually shows what Marianne was saying at the very end of her presentation is that there is a way to scale programs like what is going on at Bates to a much larger institution like Arizona State University. So Brandy's going to tell us a little bit about that. And just so you know, we're going to not have questions for these Ignite talks. We're going to give you a little bit of time at the end to think about things that you would like to ask the presenters and then encourage you to find them, certainly during the poster session, but also find them in the breaks. So, Brandy.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning, my name is Brandy Papadon-Smith, and I serve as director of a unit called Work Plus Learn at Arizona State University. We sit within University College at ASU, and wanted to share just a brief update about some work we've been doing over the past several years that has been so deeply, not just informed, but supported by this coalition. Frankly, the actual creation of this unit was based upon the very early mission and the grand challenge that was put out by the coalition. And I wanted to pull from that some language that really speaks to what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we look at the grand challenge and the focus on figuring out which experiences during a student's education are most likely to lead to transformative outcomes. And it needs to make those available to students at scale. Scale is always an interesting term, especially when you're at an institution of 140,000 plus students. But the one thing we figured out early on is scale doesn't mean one size fits all. It doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. Our learner population is far too diverse to be able to actually figure out one thing that's going to work for everybody. And the other thing, too, we figured out is that we can't keep asking our students to do more and to do different. We needed to look inside and we needed to figure out how to change what our students were already involved in for the better, to meet their needs. And so we really dial in and focus on this concept of integration. And not only, the coalition and Gallup's Bates research early on about what was so meaningful to students during their college experience, but even more research coming out of Strada, who's also a fantastic supporter of our work at ASU too, is around this concept of integration and the impact of work-integrated learning. As you can see on there and is connected to the mission of the coalition, it's not just about economic lift, it's also about long-term satisfaction, long-term ability for our students as they graduate and as they move on to look back at their educational experience and feel it was worth it, feel it had an impact, a positive impact on their post-completion lives. So our choice to focus deeply on work-integrated learning is really also allowing us to explore some pretty critical questions for us. So what might a leaderless coalition look like? And I'll talk about that in just a second too, related to work-integrated learning. How might we take a look at closing equity gaps by making work-integrated learning widely accessible, which means integration, not more and different, but true integration in what our students are already doing. And how can we use technology to really redesign work and learning? And what does that mean and what kind of impact does that have on changing career pathways of the future? A little bit about how we do our work. We are really rooted in human-centered design and design thinking. We apply that to how we approach our work, which means our students, our faculty, our staff, our partners at other institutions, they're all co-designers. They are with us at every step of the process as we do our work. What it also means is that we really sit in the problem. We aren't jumping to solutions. We like to say that we're solutions agnostic, and what that means is that we don't connect to a solution and stick with it and hold on to it to its miserable failing end, possibly. We try it out, and then we iterate upon it, and then we prototype something new based upon what we've learned, right? And so that ability to be solutions agnostic has actually proved a lot of success, of which one of them being in particular, a Work Plus. As you can see on the screen, the Work Plus Collective was something that was born last year based upon a program at ASU called Work Plus that is focusing on redesigning student employment to be an intentionally integrated working and learning experience. It's also quite wonderful to be here at Georgetown because Georgetown has done a lot of research that also informed the Work Plus program around working learners and the importance of how we support our working learners, those individuals who are pursuing higher education while working at the same time. We found out we weren't the only ones who cared about this and who were interested in actually tackling a redesign. As you see on the screen, and as in this room, a couple partners actually here, University of Maine, University of Michigan, Dearborn. Not sure if anybody else from any of these schools is here too. But they've all jumped into this crazy little sandbox with us and said, yes, we can do better for our student employees. We need to do better for our student employees. And they're willing to sit in the problem with us. They're willing to be solutions agnostic. So what we've done is we've also taken a lot of these learnings from the success that we have found related to the Work Plus Collective, and we're also trying it with a new idea. This is again based upon a couple years of piloting different ideas at the institution, working with our faculty to figure out how do we take a look at curriculum and how do we do a better job again of integrating experiences into the curriculum and still honoring what our faculty have to bring to the table as far as the curricular experiences, the knowledge base they have. So how do we find this ability to evolve and bring industry, bring employer partners into the fold in a way that truly, again, still honors the curricular core of what is necessary, but is allowing students to be able to apply the knowledge they're learning immediately. And so this Work Integrated Learning Accelerator is something that we're piloting this summer as well. So we welcome you to come chat with us at the poster session. I have a couple colleagues here from ASU that are also will be there to chat as well. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And now on to the next Ignite talk. And as you can see, these talks are in many ways related. Bates is doing purposeful work. ASU is doing Work Plus Learn. It's involving University of Michigan Dearborn. I think that's emblematic of what the coalition is seeking to achieve. We are an organization that brings in different types of institutions, a variety of different types of institutions, and we welcome that. We think that that is strength for us and that is strength for the coalition, and actually that makes all of us better by having small schools, big schools, state schools, community colleges, all of those schools working together for the same purpose. So next, we have an Ignite talk from Domenico Grasso, who's the chancellor of the University of Michigan Dearborn. He has a video that he's going to be showing, which gives you the real voice of the students who have experienced some of this, the lowercase storytelling and the uppercase storytelling that Angela was talking about.
Thanks very much, Keith. So I am from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. The Dearborn campus is a campus of opportunity. We have a lot of first-generation students, first-generation immigrants, first-generation college students, a lot of Pell students. So we're quite a bit different from our branch campus in Ann Arbor that you might be familiar with, that did win a national football championship this year, just as a point. But I am representing our associate provost, and this is an indication of how committed we are to this, because she couldn't come here and I came in her stead. She's a professor of philosophy. She wrote a great book called Intellectual Empathy that I highly recommend to you. But this is her idea and her brainchild, and it riffs off of Shamananda Adichie's terrific TED Talk, which many of you have seen, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that. It's one of the top 10 talks ever, and it's called The Danger of a Single Story. And this is our students telling their stories in their own words. And this is important because it really relates to identity, agency, and purpose, in that they do not get collectively lumped into. All of them are first-generation Pell students, and they're all the same because they're first-generation Pell students. Each one comes with a different story. Each one has had an opportunity to reflect, and we are all of us are enriched by hearing their stories. So this ties directly to what Angela's talking. I was so excited to hear her talk about the same thing. So I'm just going to turn it over, and this is a video that Maureen Linker, our associate provost, and her team put together, and I'd be happy to discuss it at the happy hour or poster session or at a bar or wherever this group meets next.
Storytelling, arguably the world's oldest art form. Huddled around campfires, trying to make sense of the world. Folk tales, Arabian Nights, Anansi, Coyote, You, Me, Shakespeare's plays, and best-selling novels. Rap battles and blockbuster movies. Poetry, lyrics, barroom banter, all stories. At U of M Dearborn, we were interested in our students' stories. Stories told from the margins, challenging the danger of a single story. Stories from the shadow of Ann Arbor and Detroit. Aided by the Coalition for Transformational Education and our chancellor, we set out to find these stories. We watched and learned with our students as they unlocked unexpected creativity, as they moved from shy to confident, as they realized the value of their voice and their experiences, as they became passionate about this work. The best way to demonstrate how our students were able to gain insight into their identity, agency, and purpose is to let one of our students share her work and speak for herself.
Last summer, I went on a study abroad trip to Gdansk, Poland. Those 2 months that I spent in Poland were the time of my life. However, out of every single memorable day, there was one tiny, otherwise insignificant moment in particular that will remain etched in my mind forever. My study abroad group and I were 3 weeks into the trip, each week bringing a new adventure to a different historical site. This week, we were going to Stutthof, a concentration camp that killed at least half of its 110,000 prisoners between its opening in 1939 to its liberation in 1945. Stutthof was about an hour's drive away from where we were staying in Gdansk, so we all met out behind our dorms for a rental bus to pick us up. I watched out the window as we eventually rolled out of the Polish suburbs and onto bumpy country roads. When we arrived, we all shuffled out of the bus and waited outside the camp for our tour guide, each one of us pulling our jackets tight to keep warm on that appropriately cold and dreary day. We got situated with our tour guide, and he proceeded to lead us through the camp, telling us stories of starvation, disease, and gruesome murder. There were several things in Stutthof that affected me deeper than others, like a pile of shoe soles that spanned the width of a long room as tall as my chest, an inconceivably long glass case filled with nothing but ash and charred bone, and, of course, the realization that I was walking along the same paths where tens of thousands of people had taken their last breaths. However, what really struck me was a different, relatively unemotional part of the camp. To quote a journal entry that I wrote when we returned back to the dorms, there were 2 or 3 things within Stutthof that I believe affected me the most, one of which was within the women's housing, when we passed by a supportive column filled with the carvings of the women who had lived there. It struck me deeply in that moment, realizing how these people had practically put their lives on the line for self-expression. That's how much we need it as human beings, that the graffiti was deemed worth the risk of death. As I stood in wonder, I tried to make out what some of the carvings might have said, but they were all either written in a language I couldn't understand or had lost their visual clarity to the passage of time. Regardless, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Here were these women experiencing genocide firsthand, yet something had moved them to carve message of importance into the support column. Was it an act of rebellion? Was it a source of motivation to keep going? Or was it just a form of preservation, to nick up a beam with writing that could endure after death? To me, in its simplicity, the graffiti on the support column represented something so magnificently human, the desire to leave something behind that's proof to ourselves and the world that I was here. After talking to several of my peers that had accompanied me to Stutthof, I found that they hadn't found such significance in the support beam, if they even noticed the graffiti in the first place. This juxtaposition and perspective further demonstrated to me that, as a creative, I just might see the world in a different way than the others around me. It also helped to solidify my own role in the world, not only as a creative, but as an aspiring journalist, to give a voice to people who can't or won't share their stories. I knew I wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid, but it wasn't until recently that I realized that I was made to hear and share real human stories.
Their brief, personal stories reflected universal experiences. We initially thought we would be learning about our students through their final stories. But learning this process along with them, they taught us so much about who they were, their lives, their identities, their search for meaning and purpose. Everyone involved realized the importance of these stories, the sharing. The lived experiences of our students were important to share and highlight. The students engaged in this work saw opportunities and paths open to them that they had not previously considered. They learned they had unexplored creative potential and profound collaborative energy. At no point was our students' passion for and commitment to this project more obvious than when we traveled with 6 of them to the 11th International Digital Storytelling Conference in Baltimore, where they presented their work and received a standing ovation for their efforts. Through this project, our students took their place in the ancient tradition of storytelling, using stories to reflect individual and universal truths about themselves, our campus, their communities, and our area.
Creative retellings of the truth are more than my dream career. They're my sustenance. And if I can see the world in this way, I know I have a duty to tell the tales of anyone and everyone, to shout that we were here.
So as I mentioned before, we have Ignite Talks. We have 3 more Ignite Talks over the next half hour. And we have representatives of various institutions. The first one is by Harley Ramsey, who's the Associate Professor of Technical Communication Practice at the University of Southern California. And I wanted to say that Harley has been really good about documenting her work. I know that she's presented at a number of conferences to talk about what she has done in relationships with the coalition. And I've been thinking that we should start an award. We should start several awards, which is actually something we've talked about within the coalition, for those people who present the most papers and engage the most students and convince the most deans that they should be part of all this. So, Harley, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if my slides were going to be queued up. Here we go. So I'm going to be sharing with you about the Ethos Project, which was housed in this Engineering and Society program at the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering. There were 3 distinct projects. One had to do with Freshman Academy using a makerspace. One had to do with a series of student discussions. And the one that I really spearheaded was a video interview project. And I would like to say from the outset, of course, a big thank you to CTE for really launching these projects with their funding. The projects might have existed without CTE, 2 of them probably not, but they would not have been the same. And that's what I want to speak to you about, was about the value of really leaning into the CTE mission. And I think we did that very well, I would humbly say, because these 3 projects, 3 years later, are thriving. They're flourishing, if I can use that word. They've all grown, they've all been sustained and grown in scale, and that from the beginning was something that was impressed upon us as one of CTE's goals, is that the projects will have a life beyond their initial funding. So reflecting on the 3 projects, I look back and I have maybe 4 takeaways about what led them to all flourish, and across all 3 that were very different. The first, excited faculty, that's great. The second, in Engineering and Society program, our director let the 3 of us who were excited about 3 different ideas yoke them together and receive the funding for the Ethos Project. And in doing that, he and CTE in funding it really invited us to step in to this ecosystem of identity, purpose, and agency by treating faculty with that. And I think that that was crucial, and it was crucial that our administrators recognized that and CTE supported it. Also, we had dean-level support in any institution. That's important for something to succeed. Janos Yortsos, our dean, is a firm believer in the principles of CTE, so he encouraged, and I would say, really pushed us in the beginning to evaluate whether our proposal really took these goals to heart, that we weren't just throwing around the word identity, agency, and purpose in a grant proposal. So that was very foundational from the beginning and important. And he did, administrators out there will know this is important too, he also provided funding, even in the launch year, and that demonstrated the Viterbi School's commitment to our project, which again reinforced ours. But I would say the real secret sauce is number 4 on the sheet here. It's not just institutional support, but that these 3 projects had a deep alignment with CTE's mission. They all had deeply interwoven in them a genuine passion for identity, agency, and purpose. And they were such different projects that was manifested in very different ways. But somebody said pattern recognition earlier. Ding, 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 that was the pattern. That's what they all shared. And so anybody who's thinking about applying or starting something new, I would urge you to really take CTE's principles to heart. I'm just going to, in the next few minutes, share a little bit about the project I worked on, sort of as a case study. Vision Venture was a series of interviews that students did with recent alumni. I don't have time to talk about the why of the project, but I will tell you about the how, or the what and the how. A little bit of why, with the what, though, is context. I teach in the Engineering and Society program. I'm an engineering educator. And so our students, it's been found, sometimes lose their sense of purpose. But I would say even more than that, if you think about students, they've been in school their entire life. So just keep that student perspective in mind when you hear about a readiness gap or losing sense of purpose or early career frustration. And if you look at this picture, which is on our website, a pathway demonstrates distance through the convergence of these lines. And the point of convergence is called the vanishing point. We have that in education too. If you imagine students been on this path their whole life, but what is the vanishing point for us? Graduation. Students have no idea what's beyond that cognitive horizon, especially students who have not had the luxury of an internship or who are first-gen students by definition, or underrepresented population, especially in my field of engineering. So that's why we found it very valuable to have students interview alumni. The interviews were about an hour long each, but what a student team did is curated them into short thematic clips. We have 3 seasons so far. And it was important also, somebody said you can't just follow one person's story, or it's their story, not yours. The clips merge multiple alumni speaking on a topic. So for example, diversity in the workplace would feature 3 different alumni. And the videos are 1 to 6 minutes, so it's great for the Instagram Reel population, the TikTok demographic. Students do enjoy it, watch it. I would invite you all to check out visionventure.usc.edu. Don't do the www, that was my fault. But I'd also invite you to please stop by our poster session, where Stephanie Bartholomew, a student who actually participated in alumni interviews, will be explaining our project further. So thank you to CTE, and thank you to you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Harley. And as she mentioned, following up right after this session is the poster session. So these Ignite Talks are meant to fire up your enthusiasm to talk to the people who have been presenting the Ignite Talks and everyone else who's part of the coalition to learn more about their programs. And as Harley mentioned, she has a student, Stephanie, who's with her from USC to join the conversation. We appreciate that very much. So the next Ignite Talk that we have is by Steve Malter, who's professor of practice and management and entrepreneurship at Washington University in St. Louis. WashU is a new member of the coalition, and they're really very much focused on developing purposeful leaders driven by character. So Steve.
Thank you very much for having me. I've spent my majority of my career at the intersection of academic and student affairs, and so I will definitely be touching on collaboration. So when you asked that question, I was really excited. WashU Leads is a campus-wide leadership program designed to expose every single one of our Washington University students from undergraduate through graduate school to leadership development. And we're really thinking about, we're reframing leadership development and who is a leader. Because all too often, people define it as positional leaders. And so we're really beginning with that self-insight, that self-assessment, helping our students to develop confidence and then helping them to apply their leadership, and really under the guise of every one of us has the opportunity to make an impact. So we will be beginning, we've been doing some pilot work, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but developing that sense of purpose and helping our students develop their purpose and refine their purpose as they're going through their academic experience, and helping to make sure their purpose then helps them align what they do post-graduation. because I think we all know when there's an alignment. We talked about happiness and flourishing. I myself was, a week before the LSAT, decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, and so really floundered for a couple of years until I found higher education. So at new student orientation, our chancellor will be speaking about this in our convocation. Our students will be hearing about this in the first year floor meetings. It will be a part of having them to start to consider, how do they define their purpose? Washington University, our unofficial motto is to know our students by name and story. And I've been blessed to have been there. The plan was 2 years. I was going for 2 years in 1998. I'm a Floridian at heart, and I said 2 years and I'm back. But I'm still at Washington University, still in Missouri. And so to really help them figure out their name and story, and that's part of what has kept me at the university, is getting to know the generations of our students. So the key program components, this is collaborative in nature. So Kurt Dirks, Special Assistant to the Chancellor on Leadership and a senior faculty member in the Business School's Organizational Behavior Group, and our Vice President of Student Affairs, Dr. Ana Gonzalez, are co-chairing this effort. And so I am part of the academic team, and I'm doing program design, but we have a whole student affairs side, and we work collaboratively together to make sure that what's going on in residential life and student activities and Greek life and athletics all aligns with what our students are going to see in the classroom. So we are already piloting, and we will be in our first year seminars for our business students and our engineering students and hopefully our art students, talking about purpose, talking about leadership. Every student who takes Writing 1, which is about 85% of our campus, will be developing a purpose statement and writing a Writing 1 essay on their purpose as they see it currently. We are developing courses within each discipline so that students will be able to opt into years 2, 3, and 4 of the program. And so each school will have courses that have purpose as a part of it, and they will have to do a combination of academic and co-curricular activities. We are launching a series of faculty grants, I think this month. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this month. And we're providing grants for faculty to redesign courses or to design new courses integrating purpose on self-discovery and insights. And you can see a number of different topics that we're asking our faculty to use. So we're really, really excited about that. The faculty are pretty fired up because, faculty from all over campus will be invited to apply, and we're in a fortunate position where we have some resources where we can provide faculty grants to do some redesign and redevelopment. We are in a pilot phase of doing workshops. So I'm doing a lot of the design of the workshops right now and in collaboration. And so we'd originally thought about these pilot programs as student leaders, right? Helping them determine their leadership skills. And we really had a great conversation with our athletic coaches, our varsity coaches, to say, our captains are not our leaders. Our captains win a popularity contest. And so we've developed a high potential impact program with them. And the coaches nominated their varsity athletes who they thought were high potential. And so we're doing self-assessment and we're doing goal setting. And I think Monday night we have a session on how to conduct difficult conversations. And then we're going to follow it up with, how do you articulate what you've done to people beyond Washington University? Because our students at all our institutions do amazing things and somehow undersell themselves because they want to be humble or they don't want to brag. So we're doing this in the business school, we're doing this in our engineering school, and we really are helping them to develop confidence and skills and support teams. So the future state, we have a whole program that we're going to run out that's going to touch every student. We are starting with international graduate students. We got a special grant for that, or a special gift for that. We were very fortunate just 2 weeks ago to be able to announce a transformational gift for the student leadership piece. Is now the Bauer Leadership Academy, the Bauer family, and so we're really excited. The pilots have been going on for 2 years and now really starting to roll it out this coming year, and we look forward to talking to you. Kept my own time. Thank you very much for letting us be a part of this.
Thanks, Steve. Our third and last Ignite talk will be by Kurt Nelson, who's the Director of Religious and Spiritual Life at Bucknell, And joining him will be a student from Bucknell, Ibrahim Ware, who's an undergraduate. And as many of you know, Bucknell is my home institution. So Kurt is one of my guiding lights at Bucknell, and a strong advocate for really supporting the development of purpose and belonging among our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Bring you greetings on behalf of Bucknell University, where I serve as chaplain, and on behalf of Ibrahim, one of the top 10 students of all time, easily, and on behalf of Joe Tranquillo, our wonderful colleague, one of the top 4 associate provosts working at Bucknell this semester, easily, as we try to build a culture of engagement with questions of purpose in central Pennsylvania. You can come talk with us about our poster, about structures and practices, but for these 5 minutes, since it's my work and call, a story, and then Ibrahim's going to invite you into an activity. I remain convinced, no matter what Corey Keyes says, that an answer to this question, what are we here for, or at least space to ponder it with some regularity, remains the most consequential, important, and stickiest factor in student and human well-being, success, retention, or however we might like to narrate it. And I argue that our students are hungry to connect and converse about purposeful things, even though it doesn't always feel that way. For many years, I taught a class in January on a small campus in the hills of rural Maine called The Good Life, in which we engaged with texts and ideas from an array of spiritual and philosophical traditions, from Confucius to Peter Singer, focused on that question: what does it mean to live well? And I made students undertake a practice during that month and write about it. And I gave them a range of options, and they could propose their own as well. But to a person, every single high-achieving, on-the-ball student kept a 2-week gratitude journal, which, sidebar, work incredibly well. And to a person, the slackers in the class every year undertook a 24-hour cell phone fast. Brett was a slacker and a lacrosse bro, which put him at the top of a certain social hierarchy in that institution at that time. And he phone fasted on a Friday, late in January, right before the assignment was due, and found himself, as he often did, sitting in a dorm room, pre-gaming with his friends, drinking to get drunk. And he looked around and noticed that everyone was looking at their phones. And he said to himself, and he wrote on his paper, "What am I doing here?" Which is the simplest, most visceral form of the purpose question. And I thought I did right by Brett that day, by bringing this a question into the front of his attention and giving him texts to ponder. It took me, though, 6 years and a move to a new school and a pandemic and a bunch of focus groups and campus research and funding, thank you, Keith, from the CTE, to learn the lesson that Brett was teaching me in that moment, which is that our students experience questions of purpose and questions of belonging as inextricably linked. But formed as I am, and as most of us are, by this modern, Western, hyper-individualistic, know thyself, self-made man culture and intellectual tradition, even when I was thinking these purposeful questions, and even when I was building these purposeful communities, I was thinking of them through a lens of individuals in self-reflection, not people in community. At Bucknell University in January of 2020, we had big plans to map the question, when and where were Bucknell students engaging with questions of purpose, thinking that they would tell us about this major or that advisor or such and such team, and we'd find out what we were doing right and build on those successes. And a couple of months later, you probably remember, we were all in quarantine. In focus group after focus group, where we honestly asked just this one question, nothing mapped except the message Brett wanted me to hear those long years ago. I found my purpose when I found my people. And they really wanted us to know that. And they really wanted to talk about it. I found my purpose when I found my people. And we've been refining our question and our practice ever since. And at this point, we're here. How might we give our communities space and time and permission to ask and pursue questions of purpose together? and through listening sessions and small groups and public events and reflective courses and reflective practices embedded in courses and big picture ideas about frameworks of thriving, we are trying, and we don't have any easy answers. But I am sure that our students are asking us to help them find time and space and permission to ask and pursue questions of purpose together, which is to say, we need to create cultures where we can engage with big, purposeful questions in community regularly. And I remain convinced that this is the urgent question of education right now. I'm sure you, like I, have been kept up nights thinking about this so-called looming crisis of mental health and loneliness and social disruption, but thankfully this is not that question. It's this one. From my good friend Kat Moore at USC. How much belonging can we create in any given moment or container, in elevators, in classrooms, and at conferences? And the answer, we think, is a whole lot. So,
if you'll indulge us in this question for a moment, you'll notice that on your tables, you will have some stickers near the flower vase or just spread about. They sort of look like this. So our colleague Joe Tranquillo, who you can talk to at our poster session later today, has determined 3 key components to a sense of belonging. 1, are you a part of something bigger through traditions, rituals, and symbols? That would be the blue sticker. 2, have you found a small group of a ride or die friendship or friends who you are very close with? That would be the pink sticker or the red sticker, depending on how you view it. And do you have a mentor, number 3, and also the yellow sticker? Go ahead and pick which one of those resonates the most with you. They all can resonate, but whatever resonates the most, you'll select and stick onto your name badge, please.
up on the thing, blue, yeah, say it one more time.
Blue is part of something bigger. Pink or red, a small group of good friends. And C, a mentor. Yellow, yes. All right. All right. So shortly after, we will have our social session and our poster session, and we encourage you to find someone with your same colored sticker and to share a story about a tradition, a friendship, a mentor that has made a difference to you. And let's see what emerges from that. Cool? Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Ibrahim. They have clearly thrown out a challenge to you all in an active way, and I really appreciate it. They asked for permission to do this. We said, sure, let's go ahead and do it. It's a great opportunity, again, to contribute to the interactions between you all and to share stories, which has been a continuing theme throughout much of the day.